So you right next to mine. That's what I thought. Are you ready? Let's open her up. We'll call it to order. Approval of the agenda. Okay, Tracy, is there a second? Second from Doug. All those in favor say aye. Opposed the same. Approval of the May 13th minutes. Okay, Brad. Jim. All those in favor say aye. Opposed the same. All right. Public comment, did we get any write-ins for public comment that we know of? You didn't receive any, okay. Is there anybody, do we have the West Wing open? Okay. Is anyone up there that wants to? Bob, you know how to get up there? To the West Wing to see if there's public comment? Is there anyone up there, do we know? Yes. Is there anyone in the West Wing that wants to have public comment?
No comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have no public comment. Number 5, receive information, supervisors. We have Mr. Nelson here. Excuse me. You better go up to the podium. Is there a speaker there? Yep.
All right. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of give the committee an update. I've talked to a few town officials in the community over the last month, a little bit as just the chair, just reaching out. And the one thing seemed to be the main topic was the CAFO, swine CAFO. And I kind of got broad support from everyone on doing a conditional use process. There wasn't a big appetite to just let it go away. But the conditional use certainly was, I think, what we all felt like was a reasonable request to do. A couple things that I took away from the meetings was the towns would like to be able to be part of that conditional use process, whatever ability we have to bring the towns into that. On their end, Eureka is going to actually put together a conditional use process along with their ordinance they have. A couple of things on that conditional use was that seemed to be a lot of consensus was to have a yearly manure management plan that would be required in the conditional use at the county level and at the township level. So the townships could actually be the lead source of that. They would be able to determine, hey, we saw the manure management plan, it's at the town shop. We noticed that this swine CAFO, if we ever get one, we noticed that they're taking the manure somewhere else that's not on the plan. It'd be an easy, they felt that it'd be like your eyes and ears of the county out there in the community. So if they were involved in that process, they seemed to like that. The other thing we have some consensus on too was that there be a dwelling on the property. So if we're going to allow a swine CAFO to be in the community and they went through the conditional use, one of the things that seemed still good that would be that there'd be that on-site person, right? And So if we're going to allow them to come to the county, that there would have to be a residence or a dwelling on that parcel. So township officials, county officials would go and be able to knock on the door and say, hey, your pigs are out, or there's something going on here, a contact. So whether that's legal allowed to do or not, it seemed like everyone felt a little more comfortable that an employee, an owner, someone would have to be on the property, living on the property. And then the rest of the stuff was just more about having some control over driveways, where they were at, screening, setbacks. They all definitely supported the not allowing them in the shoreline district, and that was pretty much it. So I just want to give you guys that heads up. If anyone's got any questions, but that's all I really have.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Do you have any other supervisors online or anything that have any comments? Okay, if not, we'll move on. Number 6, extension. Are they here or are they going to be virtual?
They're there have to be on the front end of the agenda. That's our question here.
She's here yet or something happened. All right. We'll go on to number 7. If she does come, we'll put her back in.
Good morning, everyone. Update on the June 10th public hearing process. Everything so far so good. We have a room and camera reserved. It looks like we're all set to go on that. We've been fielding a few phone calls with questions about folks wondering when to come or where to go, and so we've been giving them the best information we can. But really, there haven't been too many questions. So we've been encouraging folks to come in and speak their piece and partake in the process. So that's really about it for the public hearing update. Do you have any questions? The video is going to be a 2 days of video where people can come in and record themselves. That's going to be done here. Where? This room. Yep. Sorry. And then the public hearing on the 10th. So.
Okay, that sounds good. B then.
B, update on the Trail Advisory Group. We had a productive meeting last week with Chairman Nelson and Supervisor Middleton and County Administrator Netherlands, Bob, myself, and Mark. And we talked about the scope and the focus of this project, and we're still working on that and trying to figure out the best way forward. There's a resolution that's being bounced around. That'll be brought to General Government Committee. And I talked about the scope at all. Sure. What was talked about in the meeting was working with the consultant to help these parties come together, the villages, the towns, user groups, the county, bringing in a consultant to talk and gather information from all these different stakeholder groups and figure out the best way forward. Kind of a planning to plan process. Because this is a really big issue, it's a really big question, and we're going to try to take a focused approach and not waste a lot of time and money. So we think a consultant would probably be the best way to do that.
Okay.
We haven't reached out to anybody yet.
Resolution's going through general government because of funding?
Yes.
Okay. When it comes to us also?
I probably not, right? I don't know. I guess I don't know the answer to that.
Right now we're trying to develop a scope of work, so what we want to accomplish and learn. And so what we're doing now is kind of reaching out to some other communities or counties who have had a successful initiative to what we're trying to do. And through that, we're going to try to develop, again, clear, learning objectives, combine that with the resolution get feedback from the General Government Committee, and then I suppose we could add some language to the resolution that any trail or park-related issues could be brought to this committee. But for now, it looks like it's going to be pretty much a staff initiative with the volunteer groups. We can certainly report to the ESC committee. I know Supervisor Middleton had some concerns about that, but we'll definitely keep you apprised, if that makes sense.
Instead of an ad hoc committee of ours, to our committee, maybe we want to make sure that we do get reports and updates. Maybe it should come through us.
But at least my understanding is, the resolution would be to purely financial, to appropriate money to hire a consultant, but then at that point, I believe it would come back to us. If that consultant, if the money was appropriated and the consultant was hired, then I would believe it would come back to us, because then it would become a trail system issue again. But if the resolution is just about finances, I can see where that would go to general government, and then they'd say yes or no, the county board would say yes or no, and if it was a yes, then everything would flow back through here again. I guess that's the way I look at it anyway.
I agree. And we just haven't thought that far forward. We're just focusing on, what we want to do and working with the General Government Committee in addition to the supervisors into developing the scope of work and moving it forward from there. In the resolution, it really defines the framework of the TAG, the Trail Advisory Group, where there's 1 or 2 representatives from 7 different user groups. So it's a volunteer-based organization, and we have 2 elected officials as well, non-voting members. And the idea is, again, build relationships, start to talk about ways we can collaborate, share trails, find arteries, new arteries for conflicting user groups, and ultimately do a countywide or regional trail network. So it's not a small endeavor, it's a big task, and right now we're in the planning stage. But yeah, let's put out of the General Government Committee, and I agree with Supervisor Olson, as this moves along, this Government Committee naturally will be the oversight committee.
Just, you have a question? Yeah.
Idea to have it on your agenda, even before general government, right after, before it goes to county board. Did you guys see the language that it needs to follow? I don't understand that.
Oh, and just for review.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense too, I think.
I'll put it on the June 10th agenda, which would be appropriate because, we'll be dealing with trail issues at that meeting as well, so it fits. So the product in the General Government Committee, whether it's the resolution or the scope of work or both, will be on the agenda for June 10th.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have, unless there's any more questions.
If not, no, that sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bruder is on the phone. She couldn't get in the WebEx, so I believe she is one of the phone calls with UW Extension.
Okay.
So I don't know if you can find her, Bob.
We have 2 callers. These are 2 and these are 3. Oh,
Good hit.
good hit.
Okay.
This is Kristen Bruder.
Yeah.
Hi, good morning. I'm not able to get on the video.
Okay. But we can hear you.
All right, I'm still trying, so if I can get on, I will. But I just want to let you know that I am on.
All right. And what do you have for us? You are up for the ag agent.
Okay. Good morning. Yeah, I wanted to give you a quick update on that position. So Becky Schley, as you all has met in the past, she resigned her position. At this point, we, the university, of course, and with the county, we're on a hiring freeze with the current situation. And I know just being good stewards of the county funding, now is not probably a good time to hire. So at this point, I've been working with Vince, Administrator Netherland, to discuss options there in terms of coverage for ag in the meantime. So Ryan Steary will be answering and working, and he's St. Croix County Ag. So he'll be covering Polk County in terms of any questions that come in. We are sending out a mass mailing with resources to all farmers. Ryan is helping to put that together, as is Carrie, our support staff. And we'll be sending that mailing with all of the resources that are now currently accessible to farmers across the state in response to COVID, and then also to help with their questions or farm-related items that have come up in terms of COVID and trying to maintain some sort of a semblance of a wage coming in for the farm. So we're currently trying to work the best we can to support farmers in Polk County without that position. And I'll work with Administrator Netherland in terms of that hire and when. But at this point, we're also looking at a potential different structure in terms of a more regional approach that would not only help the small farmers, but it also would be more beneficial to the larger farms. And taking a look at that economic development aspect, how can we support farms? How can we diversify their funding? How can we help them grow their business right there in Polk County and around the region, especially in the midst of COVID and the loss of funding that they have due to the current situation. So that's about what I have. That position, if you remember, is 25%. That's a position that is shared with the state. So your portion of that is $9,700. That has not been charged to you while that position has been open. So you will receive. You won't be billed for that position. It has not been billed yet in 2020, and it won't be billed until that position is filled. So you have not paid for that position currently, even though we are trying to still cover ag needs in Polk County.
All right. Anybody else? Go ahead, Brad.
Brad Olson here, Kristen. If we're going to, if the university is looking at a regional approach on the ag side of things, any idea when that would be implemented? I mean, is that on hold right now too, or is that still in the works moving forward? And is there a time frame for that regional approach to be put into place? The planning for that approach is currently happening with our institute director. As you know, we've restructured an extension so that the institute director has taken a look. They've listened to supervisors across the state. They've listened to farmers across the state on what those needs are. And so she's developing that plan now. They're actually ready for a more regional approach. At this point, it's all been put on hold because of COVID, because of, the uncertainty of funding both at the county and the state level. So, I can't give you an exact, date on when that might be. But I will tell you that is something that we are poised to do in this area because of the lack of ag presence that we currently have. She's looking at our region as probably being one of the first to open up with that new model.
and also looking at putting a few specialists on this side of the state to start covering those needs, because we really do have a lack of presence on this side of the state currently. So we're poised pretty well when we're able to open that up and begin that new structure. I just can't tell you when that might be, both on the county side and your investment into that, and then also on the state side and their investment.
All
Did I answer your question, Supervisor Olson?
Yes, that was good, yeah. Because if the state doesn't fund it, it doesn't move on anyway.
Correct. Yeah, and we currently have, a 25% investment. The state is still would still support that. We can't hire right now on the state side for that 25% because we do have a hiring freeze, as do most counties as well. So at this point, we're not moving forward with any hires just until this COVID situation passes. We know what the budgets look like better across the state, and we know what the what UW-Madison extension budget is moving forward as well. So we're at this point, even if we were not on a hiring freeze, we probably wouldn't be engaging in a hiring just because of the counties and the uncertainty there. We want to make sure that we certainly have money to support the colleagues that we currently have hired before we engage in hiring new staff. I will say again that we are supporting the farmers in Polk County. That mailing will go out this week or next with the resources, and the Ag Institute has done an incredible job actually of putting resources online, taking some of their programs and actually having those broadcast across the state. We're starting, you look at the situation and you try to find a silver lining, and I think that silver lining for programming has been that people are willing, when they can't be there in person, to engage online, and perhaps that could be something moving forward. So we might even be able to tap into some bigger, broader programs moving forward due to this, unfortunate circumstance we're under. But I do know that Polk County farmers have engaged with some of those state programs. So they do know, some of them know about the resources. We're trying to get it out there so that that word carries.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, anyone?
You bet.
If not, yes, we're good. Thank you for the update.
Thank you. I wish I could see you guys.
Yeah. All right.
Take care. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep. Bye. Oh.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Chairman, she brought up a hire freeze, and I guess I'd like to ask Vince, are we in a hire freeze? Because every week in the paper I see jobs advertised.
Yeah, I think there's maybe one in there now. We are having a hiring freeze, but we do that with certain exceptions. There are certain ones that we might be required to have, or that they are in fact going to allow us to work more efficiently. So it's kind of a hiring freeze with an asterisk. We have a few jobs that we need to actually fill.
Okay. All right. Number 8, zoning. We're going to start with A here. Health and Services, you're here for that? Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I guess I would like to start out by thanking you for allowing us to be here. We're happy to be able to present from the public health side of things on the CAFO issue, but I would like to open it up for questions from you before I give the statement on where public health position is.
All right, questions. I think some of the questions were about the air quality and stuff and the testing that you had brought up.
Right. So I did review the report last night, and I checked with both Brian Hobbs and Brian Kesmarski, the health officer. We're satisfied with what's contained in the report, so I didn't come prepared to answer specific questions about that, just the public health position on what our role would be in CAFO, conditional use permit, and that type of thing.
Okay, well, let's jump into what would your presence be on a conditional use permit?
So we would be not the complaint department, but we would receive, complaints on issues with, human health hazard if they rose to that level. So we would go out and investigate those types of issues.
Okay. Animal abuse, any of that? No, is that you guys do then, or is that falls under what?
I believe, is it the sheriff's department that does
Okay. Yeah.
neglected animals and abuse?
Okay.
Mhm.
And that was addressed in here fairly well, you thought?
Right, yeah, I flagged out what I thought were the public health areas, and
Okay.
yes. Mhm.
Any questions? Go ahead, Doug.
This is more a general question, and I don't know at what time to ask it, but it has to do with the cable, so, and the report. Bob sent us an updated report on Friday, I think. And reading through that, I have a number of questions that I see, I don't know that this is the time. They're not necessarily health issues. They're explanations that I need or would like to see from staff. So I don't know if we need to put that on the agenda for a future meeting.
Well, we just have to read those questions. Right now, we got health, to see if there's any other questions.
Right, I understand. I guess that's why my concerns is looking forward.
Sure. Does anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Brad.
So on the, on the health side of things for, suspected health hazard, I guess I'm just looking as to who determines the health hazard. I mean, is it referred by a doctor if I drive by the CAFO and cough? Is that it? I mean, how do we as the county, how do we determine
What it is?
what it is? I mean, are we going to look every time someone calls in and says, you know, I drove by and coughed, or does it have to be referred by a doctor, or I just asked, am I explaining my question good enough?
Yes, I think so. So we have an ordinance, that addresses human health hazard. We do those, investigations routinely. We would just anticipate that the CAFO issue would be added to that. So if somebody has a concern about spillage onto, somebody else's property, we would go out and do that investigation and determine if it did rise to that level of human health hazard as defined by the ordinance and the statutes in public health.
So we would add that to the ordinance, and the ordinance helps enforce.
Well, it's already defined in the ordinance.
Okay, it's already
so,
defined. Okay.
Not CAFO specifically, but what would constitute a human health hazard.
Okay.
So we would investigate that piece of it.
Sure. So that would be something that reference that we. Two. Okay. Any other questions then on the health side? Okay. Well, thank you for coming. Now, Doug, you're up with your. You can go through some of yours now because we're still on it. I mean, if it isn't, yes, we're under B, so we're good. Start your list. Let's go through it.
Okay. Page 16. Groundwater contamination susceptibility. Wait, I gotta back up and say my first comment is probably the staff didn't know that I was gonna ask all these questions, but you can write them down, but I still would like to get answers. I think they should be right there. That's my position. Well, we could have him come in, if you can. Jason's right here, but here. move down to the addendums, if you want, on the table.
Yes,
I'll put, let's say, I look at page 51. I can find it already there. Well, it's the addendum under the new. Well, now we gotta wait for Mr. Chesnowski to come back because I don't see it in here. Brad had an addendum and so did Amy Middleton. Well, I'm not sure if that was an addendum, but Brad, you know? Maybe if I find the page, here we go, it's at 54. I did this online and it's a little hard to cross-reference back to. Okay, on page 50, which way should I go? I'll go with you. Okay, page 16. What was handed out this morning, Old large scale. No, it's just Polk County large scale one.
What was the binder?
It's a binder?
Yeah. But my numbers are, you're talking page 54.
Well, I'll get there. That's in here. It's just, we gotta get it sorted out.
Page 16.
Page 16 is the first question. It says, you've got a groundwater contamination susceptibility chart. And above the chart it says predicts areas that will be contaminated and predicts areas that are safe from contamination. And if you look at the groundwater susceptibilities, most susceptible and least susceptible, you look over Polk County, are we going to, and this will go back to the crossover with the conditional use, if a swine cable was to be built and they need to dispose, then are we going to look at the lands that are more susceptible and deal with a problem that could arise there? Did you understand my question? You know, if there's a lot of red on here that says more susceptible, well, as by reading in here, it talks about some of that should be pasture land and idle, but some of that pasture land, at least in my area, has gone back to farmland.
So this map is not as detailed as it would be to manage. Okay. I'm reading. Oh, okay. Okay. I'll hold it up closer on that. So this map is just to show, based on soil topography and other larger characteristics of Polk County. So the intent of this map is just to give you an idea of areas that are more susceptible than others. If we're dealing with animal waste on a field scale, we need to look at proximity to surface water, depth to bedrock, things like that. And though this map shows some of those on a larger scale, we need to dig into nutrient management plans to properly manage large amounts of animal waste. So this is not a good map to be used with what you're asking for. You need to dig more on a field scale and farm by farm plan. And find that in the nutrient management plan. And any large scale animal operation of the scale that we're talking about will have that plan. Because it being required by the DNR.
Okay, that's answering my question.
And our conditional use permit as well.
Right. So I just wanted to know, just because of reading that section, just that we have to be concerned about this in Polk County.
Yep.
So then I go to when you read these sections, when you look at this map, and you notice that we're clear up into the orange, and the 5 counties around are less susceptible. I was just looking for, I guess, concern over that we're in a high level.
We're looking at bacteria,
Right.
positive first. One thing I would say to that is, we're kind of clearly where that bacteria might be coming from. And from my understanding, that could be a potential contamination during the event itself. Don't sterilize that faucet or stick it properly and might get a contaminated sample. So these are the numbers that we received, but it's hard to say where that contamination is coming from.
Just seems like a large concern. I don't know where I don't know where you should go with it. I don't have an answer. I just was looking at it. Then I have some questions on soil capability classes. I didn't put a page down on that, but I know it's right here. You had a chart in here about, and it seems that we got soil capability classification for county, and that's on page. It doesn't have. That's why I don't have a page number. It doesn't have one. It's after. The last page I can find is 25, 6, 7, page 28, I think. There's a chart that says soil capability classification in Polk County.
This is a good map, and if you look at it closely, when you go back to the groundwater susceptibility map, they do mirror themselves to a certain degree because soils heavily influence groundwater contamination susceptibility. But what's important to take home from this particular map is the soils that go from yellow to red, and we have quite a few of them. Those are the soils that have limitations. They're not very suitable for septic systems. They may be hilly, not suitable for egg production, and if those areas are farmed, it's best practice to have some conservation practices in place to make those farmable and stay profitable, but really impact the surface of groundwater resources.
I'm sure you're answering well.
Okay. The class 1, class 2, and class 3 soils, those are our soils with very few limitations. Suitable for buildings, suitable for septic, suitable and very productive to farm. So
I just it's good conditions, I think, possibly because it's just a concern when I see these maps and susceptibility. And another paragraph states that a load volume is important. At least that's the way I read it. If it's more susceptible, this farm is supposed to put less.
sure. Right. Yep. Yeah. On sandy soils, let's use that as an example. We don't want to put 10,000 plus gallons of liquid manure on sandy soils, but liquid manure has a tendency to leach, but it's more productive. So long, things are they're less susceptible to infiltrating, permeate as fast into the soil profile. It stays in the root profile longer. You might be able to put more animal waste on those soils and have less of an influence on groundwater. So, yeah, those are the types of things that should be looked at.
So does your department, do we monitor that, go back out and check?
We do, you know, and the farms that we have nutrient management plans on, we're looking at soil very closely and looking at soil test results and now basically applying nutrients to the crop needs. Anything above and beyond that, you know, we're putting the plan together to minimize excess nutrients and balance. You know, what's taken up by the crops, we don't want to put any more on than what's taken up by the crops. Because then we get into the surplus and that's not taking use and keep out our resources. It's groundwater and surface water. So the problem is compliance with nutrient management plan. Not everybody has a nutrient management plan. So that's the challenge. Those that do, we're able to keep up on that.
Well, that's well answered. That's the concern that I see. So we just need answers to follow up on it, I guess. I think that's all I have for you. I will switch to the other back here. Thank you.
Want me to sit around?
No, I think I'm some questions over here.
Who are you going after now? Jason? Hopefully this is
well, it's page 51, and it's kind of in the middle of our section because the pages don't. But this goes back to the conditional use asking for a 1 year in Polk County because you have a 5-year permit, and it says the DNR is covering the permit monitoring and late enforcement actions of these programs and take action of these plans. Well, part of it is because of the fires. That's just a big concern. And they're doing, let's see, it talks about doing study after study on what can be done. And that kind of switches me over to on page 43. It says, let's see, where did I read that from? It talks about properly stored and handled. And so many of these paragraphs, well, that's coming from the swine study. And I realize it's biased toward the swine. Then they go on to say, but then it's fine. But how do we manage properly stored and handled? That's where the problem comes in. That's when I'm reading this even in Brad's study. But there's a question of that. It's looking forward. It's just if Brad can answer that, it's fine.
well, it's the thing that soil anything properly handle everything.
Yeah, so you're looking.
A little bit.
Yeah, so you're looking as to how somebody assures that it's properly stored and managed.
Well, I guess that would be the answer because, you know, they go on with the whole paragraph but they put that one little thing in each one of those. If properly done.
Right, but I think just to piggyback on that, Kim, that's the way everything is. I mean, that's part of Eric's job, that's part of the DNR's job. And along with everything, and I don't think agriculture, I mean, spills happen in agriculture just like they happen at the fuel station, at the fuel delivery guy out filling up your tank, propane guy could have a spill. I mean, to say that we're going to eliminate spills, period, and make sure this never happens, would be nice, but there's always a spill of some sort. I mean, we could be concerned that a fuel tanker is going to tip over the bridge on Highway 8 into the St. Croix. That doesn't mean that we can't allow them to cross anymore. I mean, if it's agriculture, if it's, I'll assume the city of Bolson Lake even, certainly the bigger ones, it's best management practices. It comes down to no different than when I gave the presentation of, sources other than agriculture. I mean, Milwaukee dumped 1.2 billion in. Last spring, Minnesota dumped 3.7 billion gallons of raw sewage into the Wisconsin River. Realistically, with the DNR's approval. Standing there watching the 3.7 billion go in. So, I'll speak as for myself and as of agriculture. It's a little disheartening to see that agriculture gets out of its rank when villages and cities around the state and around this country pump in millions and millions of gallons of water and sewage into water every year, and yet, can you imagine the outpouring of 4 or 5 people there would be if a farm spilled 3 million gallons into the Wisconsin River, but we dumped 3 million gallons of human waste in? No big deal. So I maybe didn't answer your question.
No, you actually did. Because what the concern in Polk County right now, in our community, is supposed to be dealing with swine peoples, right? So we are also concerned about groundwater. Our lakes, our rivers, our streams, everything. And you just admitted that there's a chance that there's going to be a spill. So that's a concern that I look ahead at and say, but yes, there can be a spill.
But could you run your fuel tank over at the gas station? It's a possibility.
The idea that you keep going back to what humans are doing. Humans are running these farms also. And there's where the air can come in. But if I run my truck over, it's not going to pollute Ward Lake, But what if most of the sewers are running into Ward Lake? Well, you're back to energy, and we're dealing with swine vehicles here. I mean, we can go all day on the sewers we have right here in this community.
So should we outlaw all swine in Polk County?
No, I never said that. I just said
if a spill could happen, that's what we're going to worry about. The possibility of a spill. Then we have to shut agriculture down. Because anybody can have a spill.
We have never said, Malia says you can't stop them in Polk County, but this is all coming from your report.
Why would anybody say that a spill is absolutely impossible to happen?
Well, it isn't, but it's a concern that I see the citizens looking ahead at.
What would solve that? I mean, is there laws? How would we stop?
Well, I don't. You use the property stored in handle. So, right? But they're saying, well, that might not happen. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Okay. Yeah, it's better like that.
Then if you go back to Article 2 on page 36, the whole paragraph talks about and admits that the workers have issues with the swine vehicle. The workers need 5. Does it not?
She says it can't if they don't wear respirators.
Yeah. So I'm showing that there is a concern over it.
Well, you have to have proper equipment to go into any certain building. That's part of it. That their plan would have that.
Right.
That's the outside of it.
Right.
But I think there again, it can happen. I mean, Kim's probably not gonna crawl down in a sewer with no protective mask on either and work on the inside of a tank. Those things, there again, they can happen anywhere. I mean,
Well, I'm back to the end. It can happen anywhere. We're back to dealing with a small report. Say, right here. You know, it says that the information by Supervisor Olson is all on sewing vehicles, right?
Yep.
So that's all. I just wanted to say.
Why would a ministry admit that it cannot happen?
The picture shows that it can happen.
Yeah, and that would be OSHA.
It's sure.
Okay.
And then Article 4, let's see, what was I questioning on Article 4? Okay, I just got a kick out of it. It says, however, the body of work is small in this area based on epidemiological studies which have greater potential for bias. I just wanted to bring that up. I guess Article 6, page 40. Let's see what I wrote down. Article 6, page 40. It says page 42, first line. Just a minute. I guess I lost that, but I wrote down, didn't do a good job. Page 42, I wrote down first line. 42. I think I wrote down also here. This is that simple. Manure management systems that are properly managed do not contaminate groundwater. Properly managed. I'm not looking at who is going to enforce this properly managed all the time and properly stored again. And that's the concern. And it has been the concern of the citizens since this all began.
And that should be with anything. Any contaminant should be properly managed.
But are we going to get there? I'll need to go with that.
That's how we're going to get there, yeah. Properly managed.
What that was?
We're going to make sure that it's properly managed.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So we've got the manpower.
Well, it falls under that, and it's self-regulated. That's how that works, okay? All right, any other one? Okay. What else do we have on this? Any other questions, Brandy, on any more to add, or we'll get into Jason?
Okay, just a couple of questions. So page 20 and page 20 and 24. And they're very minor. That's what I'm saying. As long as Tanya is still sitting behind me. Rates of E. coli infection. I don't know if this is a full county question, this is a state question, but do not geese and seagulls present a higher risk of E. coli contamination as far as the percentage of people infected. You hear about people going to the beach and, walking on their bare feet, goose in there, seagull in there. And so wildlife is not stated in on 20 or 24 other than deer. So that was just my thought on the E. coli end of thing. I think you'll see that there's more E. coli from geese and seagulls in this state than there is anything that's actually listed.
Do you know if it's,
I guess, what's the question again? If it's, higher concentration with geese because we shut down beaches every summer?
Yeah.
Or in the animals this year? That I don't know.
Clothing and that kind of stuff. They come from goose manure more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
okay.
Other than that, I would just say I think the version that we got today, I'd like to compliment staff on making a fair and balanced report. Do I agree with everything that's in it from either side? Not necessarily, but
It's, I believe, a much more fair and balanced report, than it was before. So thank you to staff.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
One, thank you, Mr. Olson, thank you, Mr. Raddick, for both of you participating. And I think I want to hats off to Bob and his staff as well, all of you, because throughout this whole process, our strategy or our goal was, let's get the information in front of the committee to generate discussion. And it's discussions like this is what we were trying to achieve, and so I compliment you on bringing up those facts. There are always going to be questions on all of this information. It's complicated. It comes from different perspectives. But I hope now, with the input of all of you, we've gotten a large accumulation of information that has been shared with you and discussed over the course of the last 6 or 7 months. And I hope that from here we can look at what's the next step. And then I think that's what Jason is going to discuss the possible now. But I just wanted to say thanks for all of you for your input on creating this.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Jason.
So if you guys remember back into January, we held 3 stakeholder meetings. One was from the ag producers, one was from the town officials, and one was kind of the concerned citizens of Polk County group. And I took and compiled basically their comments or their suggestions for a conditional use process into this document that Bob ends up. So some of the things that are going to have to change. Now, we're only talking about the comprehensive land use ordinance. We're not talking at all about the shoreline ordinance because that's already been handled by taking and prohibiting and not any flying tables in the shoreline area. So this is just a comprehensive. The 3 new terms and that are needed in that ordinance, basically animal lot and animal unit, we pulled and that from the state. They're already defined. And then swine capo, and that we define that for just 1,000 animal units. Originally, that had started out at like 500, and then it went to 750, and then it went to 1,000. But anyway, that's where that is at right now. We'll go ahead. So the proposed text that we were talking about 3 months ago or so now, had a conditional use procedure in our Ag 20 zoning district. We currently basically have 3 Ag zoning districts, a residential Ag 5, an Ag 10, and an Ag 20. And as staff, we thought that the Ag 20 classification might be more appropriate for a large-scale farm like this because they're going to be larger tracts of land. They're not going to be able to subdivide as much. There's only 2 houses in a 40, so they're not as populated, which that in itself I think addresses some of the concerns and that we've had for airport and public health issues. If we don't have a residential subdivision right next door, and that some of our impacts are going to be smaller. So then
jumping to the conditions, and that's, the first one was must have a nutrient management plan for all the land in the school farming operation. And that, the comment that you guys had there was to ensure that the land base is sufficient, to handle waste produced annually, so that could be just added on to that original condition. Is there any questions about these and that? You guys can jump in as we go through. So.
Do you want questions as we go, Jason, or?
Two questions as we go, yeah.
Okay, so just, and it makes no difference to me, but if you, on a nutrient management plan, you're not going to even get your permit from the state if you don't have enough land, base to sufficiently handle the waste, right?
Correct. Underneath their permit, then you'd have to have it. Land and water would be the main tool to enforce that. You're going to see that a lot of these conditions are duplicating what the state already enforces, because as we've heard from a lot of the public comment in that, the state has a lot of expired permits, or maybe they're not up on enforcing everything. By making it as part of the condition of the conditional use process, that then zoning would have some teeth for enforcement on that issue, and that would be basically simply pulling that permit. So that's a huge benefit to taking and having duplicate conditions in our CUP process compared to what everybody else is already doing. So,
would this also help the town with the CUP that they get a shot at? If they're there, because that's what
we can get into that. I mean, you guys can take and even make a condition, and that you know the town must be supportive or you know not in opposition to the CUP request. You know, and that's one condition that you guys could add to this above and beyond everything. You know, and then must obtain town approval prior to submittal. Yep.
Yeah, so that might be something we put in to keep the town so they know that it's coming is one of their.
Yep. We tried to kind of keep the town involved in condition D there, you know, in that with overweight loads and their impact to their town roads. So a lot of our area has these loads if they're hauling it that way would be over town roads. And so we could possibly insert something in there below that, you know, that the whole CAFO facility plan must be approved by the town board.
So, and it doesn't matter if it's CAFO or not, but on B there, the pit is ready to overflow, but the town won't give a final permission. Who has the ultimate say? Is it the DNR or is it the town? Because the DNR is going to be standing there saying, you have to get a certain amount of manure out of your pit. And if the town says no, you can't haul, who wins that argument? And I don't care.
They're looking at alternatives like pumping then, you know, in order to empty that pit. And
okay.
So, yep.
Jason? Now, just another backup question.
Yeah, this is Tim. I don't know if no one else can see it, but the screen share is on my end. Is it working?
Who is it?
Tim Henderson's on the line.
Oh, Tim's on it. Okay.
I didn't understand what you were saying.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're trying to show the conditional use outline there. But I believe it's not coming through on my end.
Oh, the outline's not coming through, Tim?
Yeah, it's not being shared. At least that's my computer. I don't know if that's trying to look at it. But
okay. Bob had it on sharing. He's going to try to share it again.
And then while I'm talking, sorry that the page number didn't come through on some of the report. I'll make those changes.
Everybody hear that?
Mm-hmm.
What page numbers? Can you see it now, Tim?
Yep, it looks good. Thank you.
Okay. So B, this was going back to that public comment with the proposed facility up in Burnett County. There was a property owner across that had a driveway, and they were worried about the truck traffic affecting their ability to go in and out of their driveway. So that's how condition B came up. Farm entrance must be at least 100 feet from a non-farm residential driveway. Any questions on that one? Yeah.
But I have a question on A. You were looking the other way. I didn't. You were doing it. I'm going back to the Times, and this morning we were told by Supervisor Nelson that the towns wanted to be involved. And then under this insured land basis solution to handle, that'll come out of land and water. But should the town be alerted that they can we can put a conditional use in here that the town is the enforcer of it, because they're the people that are there watching what's going on. You know, if there's going to be a complaint that would come, I think, start at the town level, but that's just a thought. I just wanted to get the town involved.
You know, I mean, I guess I would encourage you to think that these are big operations too, and I'm not sure that a town is going to have all the resources needed in order to be able to, and I shouldn't say resources and expertise in order to be able to do this, whereas, you know, like Eric with Land and Water, that they can actually get weigh carts and stuff like that to be able to weigh how much they're putting on. The town might have a scale though that I think could run somebody across. Just kind of some of that. I don't know how much that town officials want to get into that. I mean, I know he said when that they do, but.
What's that percentage?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think the idea was that they want to be involved. They just said that if we knew about the sewer management plan, that they felt like they would be a good resource to be able to look at the sewer management plan that they have on file that is part of the process, and they would be able to make a phone call to the county. They don't want to be the ones enforcing it. They just want to. Yeah, that's all I was saying.
So what we should try to get in there is something for the towns to know what acres and where they can spread the manure. I think that's the biggest problem. The guy goes 2 miles down the road and spreads it on a 40, and they think, where's it coming from? Maybe that's what the towns are looking for.
So simply providing a copy of the permit documents and updated nutrient management plans to the town first or something like that.
Something clearly where because there's some of them drive quite a ways to get rid of their manure.
Yep.
And that's what people do, because they can go into the next town. And that town wouldn't know it. So I think that's what they need is maybe each town should know if they have a dumping site. I think is that what I think that's what they're looking for. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, just the ability for the town and to have a copy of the 590 nutrient management plan that says an X amount of thousands of gallons can be spread, you know, whatever it says, and then they can have it if they have a copy of it, or if it's a simple matter of, you know, asking Eric for it or whoever. I mean, it's my understanding it's all online and available to anyone. So I don't think it's a big deal for the farm to supply a copy that says, you know, when the copy goes to the DNR, whenever it's due, that it goes to, you know, Land and Water, and then I don't think it'd be asking too much for Land and Water to send it to the town of Eureka, the town of Clam Falls, whatever town was requesting that farm.
I think there's possibilities to probably buy a farm itself, and it's well, I think just distribute packages rather than going through Land and Water to get to the town.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, then it would be up to the town also to let the farm know, hey, we want it.
Can I address this, and that, when we get down to K in that, is when we'll take I'll make an amendment to that condition of K, and that's because it says Polk County Land and Information, Land and Water Resources shall receive a copy of all current DNR and DAC permits. We could simply amend that to include the 590 plan, and we could include town.
Yeah.
In that, so.
Or include right in that one, so it's covered. Cool. Yeah.
Is it a technicality to say, I'm asking because you just said a 5-year plan, you're going to town annually on an update, because the update's coming to Eric because the DNR only asks for a report every 5 years.
The DNR decided that, but that.
I'm just clarifying that we're looking for.
At the farm, a producer to submit their updated, plan every year.
Right. So that's it. I just wanted that clarified there. Okay.
Can I interrupt again? This is Tim. For when we were having comments from people in the audience, can they use a microphone so the people online can hear them better?
Okay. I think everybody's trying, but we'll try to be clear.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, so, jumping back a little bit here, condition C, operation must comply with all other state and federal regulations pertaining to livestock facilities. I think that one's pretty straightforward. It's kind of something that we typically have as part of a conditional use.
Jason, I'm gonna go back when I made notes. Instead of must, we started using shall. Seems like that's,
Okay.
fermented shall be.
Okay.
Operation shall comply.
Okay.
I think we use one or the other. I had notes here that I put shall.
Okay.
Shall have a nutrient plan instead of must.
Okay. Yep.
It's in most of the statutes, it's either shall or it doesn't count.
Okay. One thing in that what I've heard in that lately here is condition C, operation must comply with state and federal regulations. You may want to include something about all other local rules and ordinances or regulations pertaining to livestock facilities, because it's telling your kids got their own ordinance. So if they didn't take and comply with town's ordinance, then they'd be in violation of the C here as well. Might be a thought.
State, federal, and local would cover it?
Yep.
And maybe
And all other local regulations.
all other. All right.
D, and that, the town approval for hauling any overweight loads during spring.
I'm going to back you up just a second, Jason, back to C again for local. What if the local restrictions that are put on are illegal?
Yeah, that's a risky run. So,
I'm just asking that do we need to put in, I don't have a problem with having the local in there, but, everything that is within state statute, or I'm looking for something, outside of legal, but within state statute. To just say, because otherwise the town of Clam Falls can pass anything they want and say, well, here's what you have to do, but if the state says, no, Clam Falls, you can't do that, it doesn't matter if I've printed it. That's...
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
Remember that question.
Yeah, Maria's not sitting here. I find it really hard to critique what a town does when we don't know if it's illegal or not. I mean, you can't use that word. They have a right to write their ordinance. They're a town body. And everybody says, well, their ordinance is illegal. Well, nobody's here. They haven't gone to court to prove whether it is or isn't. So it's legal right now. They have it. So it's up to I think, the facility to comply until they take them to court and somebody says it's illegal. We can't just critique it here in our committee.
Okay. You want to move it ahead, or you want to ask that question? Yeah, the sentence leaves back in the room. Okay.
That's good. She's here.
Now you're asking me to remember what I said 30 seconds ago.
He wants to add under C, all state federal regulations, we want to put local. What if one of these local laws are legal?
My contacts are not.
Good.
So what is?
So the question is if we take and change C, that operation shall comply with all other state, federal, and local regulations pertaining to livestock facilities. What happens if a town enacts an ordinance that's not legal, and the livestock facility is not in compliance with that town ordinance?
Just add the word legal. Add the word legal.
Okay.
You know, operation must comply with all other state and federal and legal local regulations.
What if the state law gets blasted, so you put legal for all of them?
Well, you could, but I think you guys are worried about some of those ordinances that have been floating around that people are making arguments about the legality, right? Yeah.
Correct.
So you could just do that, and that way you're covered. The other part of any ordinance that you could always add, like a disclaimer at the end, that if any part of this ordinance is determined unenforceable or contrary to law, the remainder stays intact, so that if, you know, the requirement that you comply with all local, if that local one becomes illegal, at least you would still.
And we have that underneath our severability clause, so.
Yeah. Doug, go ahead.
I just felt like coming back to Neil and saying that I had a big concern. You can put Neil in there, but the comments were made that their ordinance is illegal, and we can critique what a town does before it's never been to court. It's never been proven. I mean, I know I'm picking on you, but we can't just go, oh, that's illegal, we can't say town.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but the reason why that full employment of lawyers is that there's arguments to be made on both sides in most of those circumstances. So it would be presumed legal unless and until a court overturned it.
So leave the word legal out for now. And just put, so it pertains to state, federal, and local regulations.
I think the suggestion was include.
Okay, hear it.
Include it?
Sure.
Okay.
So let's just create a hypothetical. So let's assume that there is a town regulation that says it's just an absolute ban on swine CAFOs. So generally speaking, we would all in this room assume that that is a legally unenforceable ordinance, because we know that you can't just outright ban this particular use. So in those circumstances, you could, as a county or your department, Jason, could ask for my legal opinion, or my office's legal opinion, and if we deem that it is very likely unenforceable, I would be making the recommendation that you exclude that from the requirement, because that one's so patently and on its face contrary to law. But something that's more nuanced, that maybe there are arguments on both sides, even if our office would at some point say this is likely unenforceable, that would be a different story. So in those cases where it's just clearly, you know, or they say a woman can't operate a CAFO, only a man can operate a CAFO, something just ridiculous that's clearly contrary to law on its face, I would be saying don't require its compliance with that provision of that town's ordinance.
Okay.
D there, I kind of covered that already with the overweight loads in that load ban period. I was just trying to offset some of the road wear. And that one group that asked for loopholes, I suppose, and then it'd be up to the town at that point whether or not they're going to allow that load to be hauled. So, E is, shall have no waste discharge from animal lots. That's where that term is defined, from high moisture feed storage or waste storage areas into navigable waters or mapped wetlands. The committee had added mapped wetlands to that. That's one of the last meetings, so that has been changed. All waste storage structures, including manure storage, shall be at least 100 feet from the nearest property line. And that there's one group that said that that was too small, but they didn't propose any real setbacks on it. So
There's also a max on that, isn't it, at 300?
and I believe it's 300.
I think it's 300. Okay.
But that would be underneath livestock sighting rules, you know, and that's, I mean, really there's no maximum or minimum underneath conditional use.
Okay.
So. No comments on that one?
Do you want to ask Eric about that setback for manure storage facilities?
Do they will. Question is the setback from a manure storage facility to the nearest property line. I believe the max is 350 feet. Is that what it is? Underneath ATCP 51?
It sounds correct, although I'm not entirely sure. It's been a while since I looked at that. Oh, apologies. From property line? I think that would be adequate.
Okay. No other comments on that one? Leave it at 100 feet?
Yep, I think that's what we came up with before.
Okay.
Jim?
I'm not happy with that. I think that's too close, 100 feet. You're talking thousands of pigs within 100 feet of your property.
This would be the waste storage structures. So a manure pit, and that, a mortality area, I suppose.
Well, that's still awful close.
Yep. But I mean,
I don't want a swimming pool within 100 feet of me.
No.
You, Brad?
Yeah, if the hog farmer was in next door to me and they follow the rules and regulations, that's what the rules and regulations are there for. You know, who's to say, Jim, that you're built close to the property line? Maybe your house is on the opposite side of the 40 of your property line, so it might not be 100 feet from your house. It might be 1,400 feet from your house. You know, this is the property line, not from a dwelling. And if you're not going to put agriculture in rural areas, where are you going to put it? You know, so yeah, I mean, if a hog farm comes in and sits up next to me, they're going to need every acre in the plant to put some manure on. So it's going to be hard to get there. But yeah, I would not have a problem with it.
Jason, I would just like to agree with Jim. I think we have a setback, and I guess I look at what Brad said in the fact that if it's going to be in farm country, 100 feet, you're talking about a 40. What's the difference? It can be 500 feet, and it's like when if you're going to put this facility on a 40-acre plot, which that's what I've heard is the standard it's going to take to do this, then why can't it be 500 feet? That's a pretty small area of 40.
So 500 feet is going to realistically stop anybody from putting anything up, because where are you going to put your other buildings? You have to be 500 feet off the road. That doesn't leave a very big circle in the middle of a 40.
it'd be a 320 by 320 foot square in the middle of a 40, because a 40 is 1,320 feet on average if it's perfect, and that in width or length. So a 40 is 1,320 feet. Yep, 440 yards. And so if you came in 500 feet from a setback, you take 1,000 feet off, you're in the 320 by 320 square.
No, we're just talking about a restore structure.
Correct. That's where that structure is at, you know,
Right.
320 by 320.
Not even 200. I pick 500. I go 500.
But you can't, cabin's got a max at 300. 300 is their max. Just stay with under the.
I apologize. I'll switch it to 300. Thank you.
Brad?
So I'm not sure, but are not most hog structures built with the pit underneath the barn? I'm not going to say that they're not somewhere, but I believe that anything I've seen built in the last 20 to 30 years is going to have the manure pit under slatted floors under the barn. So unlike a dairy barn where you're going to have this big manure pit sitting outside, that is not going to be the case in a hog farm. Most of the time, not to say that it couldn't happen, but most of the time it's going to be directly under the barn, I believe.
Consensus then to go with 300 feet?
300 is the max, and I think we can go more.
You can go more if you want, and because this is underneath the conditional use, and that, so we're not
siting. Okay.
Because we're not governing underneath the siting rules. So that's the nice thing. You guys have flexibility in that with the CUP. So.
Do we go with 150, and then when it comes to conditional use, look at the layout because of the hills and stuff?
I believe that was some of your thought process in the past, was that you could always be more restrictive. And that, however, in that if it's at with 100 feet, that can allow them to apply. Whereas if it's 300 feet, then they're not going to meet the conditions, so they won't even be able to really apply. So it's easier to be more restrictive if they were close to Bone Lake or something like that, or if they were close to a waterway. You guys could put extra conditions on it.
The committee could always say you have to be 300 feet because of where you're at. The Jim's house is on your side of the 40 or something like that. If it's 300 feet, then that's just what it is. The committee has zero say at that point. I mean.
So what are we looking at? Looking at 300, we look at 150.
How about if we split the difference at 2?
I'll go to 2, at least. Yeah, you can always go more. There's a perfect time.
Split the difference would be 250.
150 split the difference.
Well, you said we could be more restrictive somewhere in that part.
That's what we'll do at the perfect time. That would be the way to look at it.
Hey, Doug, just to even that out, I'm going to go 200 feet down to Jim's property.
So should we just start with a minimum of 200 and see if it works? Because we can always go more. Just that's the minimum.
Correct. By actually making it smaller, you're actually giving yourself more authority at the community level here, and that to be able to put special conditions on it.
And the state might put 300 on it before it gets here.
Yep. Correct.
All right. We'll limit to 2?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, G is kind of a catch-all, just all livestock on the premise shall be counted towards the animal units. That's more of an administration deal to make it easier for us to go out there and get it to count. So.
Jason, do horses count as livestock?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I put it in there. exactly the concept that was going through my head is, well, I got 999, but my daughter's got 50 horses, so, yeah. H, the perimeter of any facility, including all buildings, housing, livestock, and feed storage with 1,000 animal units or more shall have a minimum setback to 150 feet to the property line. Now, this is where the farm barn and that, or the old barn would be in, or the three-stall barn. Any building housing that animal, that would have to meet that setback. However, we did talk that a normal equipment shed, pool shed, that kind of stuff would not be falling underneath this. So you guys made some tweaks to this just to make sure that it was directly related to the animals in the building clause. There was...
I have a question.
Yep.
Going back to Brad saying that these manure pits are underneath the building now. That's a whole lot different than where you've got the pond outside.
Yep. Correct.
So if it's underneath the building, you don't need as much space.
But
right? I don't know.
Correct. And that's possible. But right now there's the two options. A producer has the option to have the outside pit, or they've got the inside pit. If you guys wanted to, you guys could probably put the condition on it that they must have the pit underneath the barn. If you didn't like the idea of the outside lagoon. But that's not currently in here, but that's something that you guys could do. And then, of course, you would have a 150-foot setback underneath H, and that from the manure pit to the property line. So.
How would this affect, when the pit is under the building? Which setback do we go by? Seeing as there's different setbacks.
More than likely, I would suggest removing that, probably F then. Or F would be changed to that the pit must be located beneath the building, and then H would you say 150 or 200 feet for the setback.
Appears to me we should change it to 200. H. Where it says 150 feet, if you have a building with a manure pit underneath it, then it should be go back to F and become 200 feet.
200 feet, 200 everywhere. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the more restrictive is still going to apply. You know, so if they have the waste storage or the manure storage under the building, that 200-foot setback is still going to apply. And then you could still have the 150 if they didn't have the waste underneath the building. It's up to you. So the building and the manure storage facility must be 200 feet from the property line.
Then the numbers are more the same, I think, would help.
And that's in line with the public feedback that we got from the meeting. The 24-hour.
Back up just to, and maybe it's just me, but on H in the black lettering there, Jason, the perimeter of any facility, including all buildings, housing, livestock. Are we sure that takes out the machine shed? You know, and that the machine shed is not included in that 150 feet? Because I just read it as that it's the facility including the buildings, housing, the livestock. But when I read it as though that could include a machine shed, a garage, whatever it happens to be, would have to be 150 feet away.
Yep, I can see that. That's a good catch. Maybe we should remove everything from including that way. Start it with all buildings, housing, livestock, and that. That's a good catch.
So it'd be just the buildings with the livestock and feed storage.
Yep.
Machinery, buildings don't count.
Correct.
Okay.
I must provide 24-hour contact number for the DNR and owner-operator in case of a spill. They had some comments about notifying, people within 2.5 miles in a reasonable time frame. Lack of reporting cable spills, kind of with the whole St. Croix County case down there, and then I believe the spill happened in, like October in the fall, and it really wasn't reported until the following spring. I believe that was what the public comment was, just to kind of give you some insight.
So this is the one that contacted, the towns want. Also, I think that's what Chris was talking about.
Okay.
But that contact number should be to the town too.
So,
because it'll be a complaint-driven thing.
So would we want to add another condition below this and that they must notify or shall notify the town, county, and DNR within 24 hours of
Yeah.
spill?
I think so.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
It says under I, the second line, it said notification of spills to town board and residents within 2.5 miles and within a reasonable time frame. I think we have to work on a reasonable time frame.
That's what it said. That we have to report to everyone. Also, under that one is what I was saying before. That they have to call the town, county, DNR, everybody. It's probably going to be a complaint-driven thing. More than likely. Right.
I can tell you that that's a pretty tough thing to do. And that, notify everybody within 2.5 miles.
Well, I understand that. I'm not saying within 24 hours. I'm saying I personally am uncomfortable within a reasonable time frame. That could be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we should put
that's not part of the condition. That's not currently part of the condition. That was just some of the feedback that we had received. But basically, we're doing 2.5 miles, and then we have to notify a whole town.
That's right. That's what we said before.
Yeah.
We agreed to that.
Okay. I don't think we've ever finalized these conditions.
We're not finalized. Maybe it wasn't finalized. I'm just saying that was put in there as being a condition. But I'm just
I just want to let you know that that's a lot for us. So, and that's because there's a lot of phone calls and every one of those notifications.
But I'll go back to the health issues that we were shown by Brian's presentation that it was over 2.5 miles. It could be a health issue. So that's why that's in there.
Yep. That's why it was a possible condition, yeah.
Yeah.
We were supposed to do that because of what it was done. Right?
You look at it by, if it's in, Baltimore Lake, Garbage Field, you could be talking about notifying 4,000 people. And you have 4,000 people that are notified, and that's calling the health department, calling here, and each one will make calls, And at the end of the day, we might not have any enforcement action.
Mr. Chair. Perhaps instead of, you could define notifying by publicizing in the closest news media outlet to that particular area. So within the next news cycle, if it, depending upon where it is, it might be the Osceola paper, Amory paper, or something like that.
Yeah.
That way you're still making it known, but relieving the burden.
County newspaper, and that there'll be a class 1 notice provided for any spills, and that people,
Well, it should be on the web and stuff too.
we probably wouldn't have as many phone calls as
Almost like our
mailing.
So it should be notified to go on the web or whatever too.
Yeah, because most of the, and I don't know, but most of these papers put updates on their web pages, I believe, on a daily basis of, I'll say, the bigger news stories. So that would certainly be a way to just get it out there in that 48-hour time period, where everybody would have access to it.
That can be done.
And then the reasonable time, you wanted 48 hours? Is that what we were looking at? Okay.
48, 72. I mean, when we're not asking, like you're going to say Garfield and go 4,000 people, you couldn't get that done in 3 days on the phone.
Yeah.
You know.
That's some of my concerns. So
I think.
Should we put instead of reasonable time, 72 hours? Would that be?
Well.
Or what?
Going back to that again is if you have that skill, the DNR is not going to allow you the time to sit on the phone and make phone calls. So, for that first 24 hours, so it's 48, 72. I guess I don't know what either one of them. But as long as the DNR and the county is informed in 24 hours, or immediately. Even at 48 hours, it's going to be old news within the town. By the time it goes on the local paper website somewhere. I mean,
well, a reasonable time with the newspaper could be, and that depending on when it happens, but it's only published every Wednesday. So, and so I mean, we get something else on the website. So what I'm kind of hearing that to just keep this moving along is that operators shall notify the town, county, and DNR within 24 hours of the spill. The county will post on the website and in the county newspaper a Class 1 notice of the spill.
Okay. That's okay. That's just reasonable.
That's completely separate condition in the phone call contact. Can't be that separate. That be a completely new condition.
Okay.
Okay, that brings us to J, the mortality management plan. And that for any deceased animals, composting, rendering, incinerating, was added. Those I believe that you guys had talked about, what kinds, or you just wanted some examples in there. The other groups and that had some concerns about the setbacks for a building maybe that was doing the composting. And that will the animals be covered, that kind of stuff. I don't know if you want to jump into that, but that was from the town officials.
Would that fall into buildings, in housing and feed storage? Would that fall into that? So we do at least 150 or 200?
I would say the waste storage structure would fall into that, and it'd be 200 foot setback.
It'd be the 200.
Yep.
So it'd be at least the same as everything else.
Yep.
As the numbers say. Okay.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I don't know, years ago they used to have rendering trucks. You remember that? So I guess Brad would be the one. What do you do if a cow dies now?
Barrier.
Is that the way it goes? Would that?
I'm not sure, but I have been told that there is a rendering company out there again. Somebody picking it up. I don't know that for a fact, but yeah, there's nobody left in once the mink ranch is all disappeared. There is no demand for them, I'll say.
I noticed like Garvey up here in the turkey business, they bring those big dumpsters. So if he has a dead turkey, he throws it in there, and then I don't know who comes and gets it and where they go. But you've got to have some place to get rid of them. You start talking 10,000 hogs, you're going to have a few dead every day.
Yeah, but then you're talking, 30,000-40,000 birds.
Yeah.
So it's an equivalent.
Well, the only problem he has is when they get to 50 pounds, he can only take one at a time.
I'm not sure, but does protein just go to the landfill? I don't know.
Well, they have to have a plan for it, so they have to tell us what they're going to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's all the counties will come to.
That's all we're asking. They have something. But just so that we know that the setback there is 200. I guess.
Setback is 200, yeah.
Yeah, with that.
Basically with all your buildings now, except for like an ag equipment shed is what you guys changed it to.
Yep, okay.
K, this is the one, and that probably need a little bit of amending, from our previous conversations. We wanted to be notified, and that is land information and land and water departments, of all current DNR and DATCAP permits. That's just a requirement so that we get a copy of the paperwork. We could put something in there and that a copy of this should also be provided to the town. So I think it would be just as simple as Polk County Land Information Department, Land and Water Resources Department, and respective town in which the facility is located shall receive a copy of all that. So, yep.
Like there couldn't K and L be combined because that's pretty much what L is disclosure of previous violations, but that's also permits or violations on K. Isn't that the same thing? Or, couldn't we just add that into K and make it all one, or?
I would say that K is more of I'm already operating my farm and this is what I've got to do. And I believe that L was to take and on a new applicant coming in before they started to operate, so that if they were in violation in Iowa or Minnesota or something like that, that they'd have to tell you about that as part of the application process. So that's what I think the difference is between the two. K is I'm already operating and L is not. So.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. But you're going to add towns to that K?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. And as part of the DNR and DATCAP, that'd be that 590 plan. So we kind of went through L already. I'm going to jump to M, must comply with the Polk County Manure and Water Quality Management Ordinance. Of course, they got to do that anyway. And this is just for us to be able to help land and water, and that if they can't get the funds they need. So as far as enforcement goes. N was a condition that we received from Public Health, Brian Kazmarski, and basically this is kind of an open-ended clause, but if there's a human health hazard, then that violation, and that it would go to Public Health, and if they couldn't get, the property owner to comply, then zoning could also step in and pull their permit, so to operate. At the last meeting, you guys, at the last one that we were talking about this, farm owner or operator must live within 30 minutes of the farm. Supervisor Nelson had brought up earlier about having a dwelling or a household on site. An interesting concept in that you guys could look at this provision. That's kind of what this is trying to get at. But
I don't think we can force somebody to build a house and live there. I don't think we can say because we're going to have this, you have to build a house, live there, somebody's going to.
You could make a condition that they reside within so many miles, or they have a manager that resides or is located within so many miles, so that they can be responsive, something like that.
So that wouldn't work without that. So you have to build a house here. Okay.
So many of it, you kept saying miles. We can't require a building on site.
Remember, if you're creating a conditional use, every applicant that comes before you, you can add specific conditions if the type of operation at that point the committee would believe would require somebody to live on site, then you can add that as a condition. So you don't have to go through every potential possible scenario and try to put all of the conditions on here today, because you can also add conditions through the application process. But certainly you could require that someone is on site 24/7 as a condition.
I would just say that, making, as Supervisor Nelson said, making someone be on that parcel is, what if the house is across the road and it isn't on that parcel? you're still there as much as if your house was across the road. I mean, Jerry K. Polk in my area the farm is on a parcel, but I believe there's 4 houses within a quarter mile of it. The owners, it's not built on, it isn't that nobody is right there, it's just that it's not on that specific parcel. Now if you had a 200-acre parcel, that would be different, but when it's 40 and, it's across the road, it's still right there.
I'm just thinking from an enforcement standpoint, or would miles be better than this, because it might be how one person drives or flies by helicopter or whatever, have it make it clear.
That's what I was going to ask the question, because I know the last time we talked about 30 minutes, but we're talking my house to St. Croix. I mean, I think that's too much of a distance. That's like saying, we should say within 3 miles.
And would that be driving miles, or would that be as the crow flies miles?
That's a circle of 3 miles. Within 3 miles. Whatever it is.
Split the difference, 15. 3 is pretty tight. Don't you think? 3 is pretty tight or not? I'd say at least 10 miles. Some can give a little bit of slack.
Yeah, I think 3 is pretty tight. I mean, that isn't 3 miles isn't very far. How about 7?
10 from every corner has the crow flies around.
7 is the crow flies. That gets you out 10. On the road, it gets you out 10.
Yeah, but you need 30 minutes.
I mean, if we were looking at 30 minutes before, certainly if you're 10 miles away, that's going to be less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's not quite half, but let's go with 5.
12 and a half.
12 and a half. Roll call. We haven't narrowed it down to what we're roll calling on.
Give out of mine.
Yeah, I know, but I said 5. I was at 3 before, but I'll say 5.
10.
I gotta ask the question, I guess, are we talking is the crow flies or miles? 2 miles of road.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference.
But that's too difficult to do, so I'll go with the circle. Crow flies 5 miles. You've got to take the road to get there.
Yeah. Well, I'm still going with Kemet County.
5. My number's that.
7 and a half.
That's 5.
Or 5. They will go 5. They're going to have 2 words.
So that was basically the last of the conditions that we talked about before. Yep. Now, these are the conditions from the concerned citizen group. Some financial assurance or bonding. I believe that you guys have all seen the town of Eureka, and that ordinance and that they had a bonding there. Are you guys interested in that at all? I guess that's where I'll start with. And then can we even have a financial assurance bond on a cable?
I think that might be deemed more restrictive than what the state requires, so I have to research that.
Well, I've said this before, and I don't deal with it, but I know somebody that does. Our local gravel pits, he has to be bonded.
That is statutory, that any non-metallic mining operation provide a financial assurance for reclamation when they cease operation. This would not necessarily be a reclamation type situation where you're trying to make the land go back. It would be more of a bond that says that they could financially provide for a cleanup or remediation of some major violation. Sounds reasonable, but I don't want to say for certain that you could.
And our cell towers and statutes on that allow for performance bond, go ahead and move all the cell towers. If you require that, $20,000 bond. That's actually, it's pretty easy to enforce, because they're really good about providing us some of our data and stuff, but I'm not sure how this one. So we want to get that for now then?
Can we just wait, because I would like to see a bond.
I don't think it needs to be, but if the town needs one, we need one, and does the state require one, we have to find that out too a little bit, because that would be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, I just would like to wait and
let's check into that.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, Q, geologist or hydrologist review before any proposals are approved.
That'd be for, to check for groundwater, or what, a little of everything?
Well, they've got, that down farther, that test wells in R, geologist or hydrologist, yeah, I would say that they would do some kind of report and that on soils and depth of groundwater and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
We're able to expand on that, whatever you guys want. It's just one of the things that's thrown out there.
Does the DNR require any of that? Don't they require some testing? Because then if you put test wells in, you gotta be 500 feet from that, so it'd kill the land spread, so you gotta be careful what they do with it. Maybe here it comes.
In some cases, they'll require test tools to measure the level of groundwater, and if there's shallow depths of groundwater, that'll influence manure applications or other fertilizer applications and so forth. As far as test wells and so forth, I'm not aware of any requirements specific to test wells.
All right. So do we think we should probably leave that in there, do you think? Because we need to use it or not, that's the condition. But at least if it's in there, we think about it.
Well, if it's in there, they would have to provide it to you.
Yeah.
That's kind of the criteria of the applicant,
Okay.
So.
Well, if we're concerned about groundwater, we should leave it in there. Don't you think that is cool? Just so we know. Okay.
So what are we looking for?
Basically, like a soil test, like to find out where the groundwater level is at. How deep?
And are we only concerned by the facility or whether it's spreading or?
The spreading part, I think they have to do it anyway. Some of that.
Yeah. Not usually on a nutrient management plan.
Oh, really?
And that's usually by soil type, and that to create the T losses, and that and about how much they're applying. So.
I think we're headed down a rabbit hole here. And maybe that's where the county wants to go, and it isn't going to affect me, but we're headed down a rabbit hole where agriculture is about to die. Because we can sit here and we can talk about this being hogs, and hogs only. And a future board comes in and says, dairy cattle and poultry. And are we gonna put agriculture in downtown Minneapolis? I don't think so. I mean, So at what point, and I get all the concerns, and I'm not against it, but at what point do we regulate agriculture out of business? And I think that is a real concern for me, because while a lot of people think they can go to the grocery store and that's where their food comes from. And surprisingly, it's amazing how many people in Polk County think their food comes from the grocery store. I think we need to be careful of the direction we're headed. I mean, I see it happening in counties all over. We're going to protect. We want smaller agriculture. I love smaller agriculture. That's what I am. Wild probably loves smaller agriculture. But I don't see any of these people coming to our meeting and say, hey, I'm starting a 35-cow dairy to help that. And then you had 7 people raise their hand at a meeting to volunteer to help me feed the world small agriculture at a time. And if we're going to go down the road of banning large agriculture, and we can say, yeah, we don't want swine in Polk County, or in Wisconsin, or maybe anywhere else. I mean, the fact of the matter is that in 1959 there was 2.2 million hogs in the state of Wisconsin. Today, as of December 1st of 2019, there was 369,000. So we should have had a much bigger problem 60 years ago than we have today. The only thing that's changed in agriculture in the last 60 years is the amount of people that live in rural Wisconsin and rural areas of this nation. And I get it. That's the concern. But, you know, while a good portion of the country is home hiding in their basement, agriculture hasn't changed one bit. I do the same thing every day today that I've done for the last 40 years. And if there's a virus out there that I need to be concerned about, with or not, and if we're going to go down the road of regulating agriculture out of business, that's fine, but there's going to be a lot of empty store shelves, because if you go to the meat market and you say, oh, I buy my meat locally, well, yippee. But guess what? It's probably coming from Smithfield Foods, Tyson Foods, or JBS, because there's only a handful of hogs in Polk County, and we eat way more pork in Polk County than there is hogs. And if we just make that choice to say, okay, it's outlawed, we can look at this again and say it's just swine. But at some point, somebody's going to jump on board. You know, 8 months ago when this process started, we heard that it was only about swine. It wasn't about dairy. We love the dairy farm. But look at the survey, and everybody who wasn't an agricultural producer went to Cape would have started 250 animal units, regardless of what kind it is. So, yeah, that's my speech. I'll just say, be careful what you wish for. Look up and see what Missouri done. Missouri eventually got so stringent at the county and local level that the state pulled everything away from them and said, you have no control. So this country's not going to go hungry. We're going to be fed one way or the other. And if that means that the state eventually taking over total control, that's what it'll end up. But
I'm going to say that I don't have a big problem with the report for a facility, building a facility. When we get into the fields where the manure is applied, that really needs to depend on the 590 nutrient management plan. If we have to have one of these reports for every field, nobody's going to farm in Polk County.
Yeah, the cost would be astronomical. I mean, there'd be no way anybody could do anything. Like you say, the facility, that's one thing, but you start looking at, you know, having to do 1,000, 2,000 acres, wherever that land is being spread, and it really is a 40 here and a 40 there, or, you know,
I'll just do a quick update on my thoughts. Is that I don't think that's geologists and hydrologists review before any proposals are approved. This is talking about the facility. It's not talking about where they're going to spread the manure. So I personally don't see a problem with that, because if you have that many hogs in a small area, look what it can do to the groundwater if it's not the right spot.
I was just refining because talking about whether this would be applied to where it was spread. And if it is, that's just going to get too costly.
That's not my take on it, but I don't know.
We should be more specific. It should be the site. It should be the site plan. Usually get test holes anyway to know where they can put footings and everything, so it will fall out anywhere.
Yeah, because there was something out there. What about if you just had we have a lot of special engineers around, Landmore used to have, and that's developing the plans for the engineer storage facilities. Then you can use a nicer set of plans that way, probably than what you do otherwise. And you just have a PE draft, the site plan, and then that PE could also provide any drainage questions that you had or whatever. It may have a little bit more prior native expertise than just geology.
Well, is that in the permit process already?
They have to, do they, and I don't know, but do they not have to have it engineered already, or not?
Not currently underneath our conditions here, so, and that probably through the DNR, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Engineered, yep, according to NRCS standards and specs. So we could ask for a copy of that engineering plan to have that. I mean, because even in Burnett County on the Trade Lake one, I believe it was on the Trade Lake themselves, I could be wrong. An engineering firm come in, done a report, and realistically said this would be a good site for a public farm as long as it was all, properly engineered. The soil type is right, that type of a thing. So yeah, I would be for requiring that the county gets a copy of that engineering report.
Of the site plan, because that would show the building if it's like the one south of Osceola. They had to come in, big test hole, boom, put their underground fence, all that. So it'd be for the buildings and the site. Okay. So that would be an initial thing that would be right on the permit.
Yeah, so like Q would just change then the professionally engineered plans of facility shall be provided.
Yeah.
As part of the conditional use application or whatever. So, yep.
Okay.
And then what I'm kind of hearing is, you don't really want to go with in that, or are you still debating on the location itself, not just all the fields for the test wells?
One thing, you put test wells out, you gotta be 500 feet away. If you put a test well around a 40, you got 320 feet in the middle again. So I mean, I think that's the manure management plan would take care of that.
Okay. The last one in that was to meet the state standards for air quality, ammonia, air quality regulations. And that's just because there's concerns about air pollution. And that, I know that you guys have some questions on whether or not that's even testable. There is some test kits out there that you're able to get for like $25 a piece. But I'm sure that there's going to be different seasons, different times of day. There's going to be influxes, on that of the pollutants in the air. So that also becomes kind of an administration thing on how that would be done. So I don't know if you have any interest in that or not.
I'll respond in that that says meet state standards for air quality, that just doesn't seem like it's a problem. Just, if the state has a standard, then they can meet it.
Yeah, I think that's how we kind of left it too on that note. That they have to meet those standards. If something seems off, it could be a human health thing or whatever, and then we have a complaint to make that check. Okay.
So you're thinking that that condition would be enforced by public health or by the state, and so then that could probably fall into one of those other conditions that we already got that must remain in compliance with all state and federal rules and regulations and that kind of stuff. So we could probably get rid of that condition then because it already fall under one of the other ones.
It would already fall under the
So it'd fall under, is it N?
The under C.
But it also fall under N. It could actually fall under several of them that are already there.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll remove that one.
Yep.
And then just at the end, and that we threw some of those general comments that we received as part of that survey that was handed out. And that there's just, a bunch of things about taking extra time and some about the karst features, which is a geologist, hydrologist comment that we had earlier, lack of science-based setbacks, that kind of stuff. And that town officials were possibly seeing higher permit fees, or they're interested in higher permit fees, and also like yearly licensing stuff through that. So those weren't really conditions.
Okay.
To answer what I think on that is that this is a complex operation that's going in, and it's going to take a lot of your time and Eric's time. The fee should reflect that.
So currently, right now, that they would have the $750 additional use permit fee, and then there would be a $400 actual permit fee. That's where, so basically, when they come to use the application, they're paying the $750. That's covering all our costs, along with the publishing public hearing stuff. That $400 permit, that's our avenue or our tool to actually enforce the conditions that you pay for, even if it says that they must paint their burn roof, and that on here, basically, that this is conditional use, you're not allowed to condition. And that, but they would have that $400 permit. That was really cool piece on our end. Eric's going to have, PG's going to have to run, the state's going to have to, but there's no really rules, there's no license side of it.
Every time we do our fee schedule, we can check on that.
Yeah, and like you guys did last year and that with the new requirement for a yearly license on a tourist rooming house, that could be a fee that you might add, and that for a caseful, swine caseful.
Yeah.
Yearly license.
So, that can be checked every year during the fee schedule process. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay.
Yeah, I do have one if I get my mic on. So all the way back up to the very beginning in the agriculture 20A2 district. So we only have 2 towns that have any Ag 20 zoning districts in them. That's my understanding. Eureka is one of them. They've already put the paperwork in to remove all A20 from their town. So I've asked this question before, I'm sure. Are we setting it up so that even a large dairy farmer could not switch to hogs from dairy? because I don't think there's any doubt in this room that the town isn't going to vote to switch it around, or if I find somewhere, if I've, and I own 1,500, 2,000 acres and I'm a crop farmer, and I want to put in hogs, but I'm not zoned Ag 20. So I'm the longest tenured family in this county. I'm not me, I mean just hypothetically. And all of a sudden, I now need to go to Johnstown, who's the only place in the county that will allow hog operation, because they're the only place that's zoned A20. I get it, we're giving more leeway and all of that. And I understand it's, we're giving the towns that choice, so it's not illegal. But once again, we're making it illegal to conduct a perfectly legal operation, a perfectly legal business in Polk County. And today it's agriculture, tomorrow it's Walmart, it's Menards, it's whoever in whatever business wants to come. And there again, it is what it is, but is that the road we want to go down and say, yep, so you can't build them in the shoreline district, which I'm fine with. And now you can build them on probably a few acres in the town of Johnstown. And I think that someday this is not going to, and shortly down the road in the scheme of things, that this is not going to affect dairy and poultry. I think that just isn't going to happen. This is I know the tenacity of my opposition in this. They're never going to give up. And so, as my speech before, if we want to end agriculture in Polk County, I think we're headed down the right road. And we can say we're doing it in for groundwater and surface water, but oh boy, if that's the realization we're using, Pandora's box is getting open to protect ground and surface water, and I'm all for protecting it. I think agriculture over the last 30 to 40 years has protected it way better than us humans have. As far as the problems that are being caused. So I would like to see that go down to the A10 district, or just simply the comprehensive planning district, and then making it be a 35-acre parcel just because of small 40s. You could say 40 acres, but how many, we'll ask the zoning department, survey how many true 40s are there actually in the county. There's very small amount of, true 40s. I think there's probably a lot of 37, 38s, 39s, maybe a 41 here and there. But I think we've already outlawed it in, 51.5% of the land in the county. And to stay here, as far as I'm concerned, we're outlawing it in 99.9% of the county. And they're doing it out of fear. That's
in the process, so can rezone it even if the town does say no.
And so that's kind of the catch-22, and as Brad pointed out, and when you're looking at rezoning, and there's basically four criteria that a town can probably use to justify whether or not they're going to grant a rezone. One is the existing land use of the property, good use. Two is the surrounding land use of the property. So if the neighbors are all residential, that makes sense to me that it has a residential property or something close to that. And that's the third is the comprehensive plan, what they see their future land use and that being in that area. So if they were looking into the area commercial, that they, reasonable fit that area. going to be their public infrastructure, what they need to be able to provide in that area. That might be able to be used as well. So those are the important criteria. That home, then they're not even able to come to the home. So it would be our most common zoning classification is residential A5. That probably makes up 50% or a little more of our areas outside of the shoreline zoning. And with the area in the shoreline zoning, it probably makes up about 75 or 80% of the time. And that there is a fair amount of A10 out there. Sounds like Lincoln and Alden have chose that as well. And that's Ag 20, and that's a nice couple of pounds. And yes, you did submit something to their town board, and application to regional all the way at 20 and Ag 10.
So if you want to step in and go along with that too?
They do not, nope. And that's just on the town. So the town has
what do you want? No one can't decide what you want.
You would have to talk to the town board for it. So cool. That's where the whole town involvement and good or bad.
So Jason, in Ag 20, what are the other uses? I mean, in commercial or business or whatever it happens to be, there's a laundry list of things I can do in it.
Yep. It's basically the same as the Ag 10. The only difference is that in Ag 20 you can only have 2 houses per 40 acres or 1 house per 20 acres, and in the Ag 10 you can have 4 houses per 40. It's just the actual density is different. So. Otherwise, like in the Ag 20 district, as far as conditional uses, it says see the Ag 10 conditional uses, which is like a feed mill and fertilizer plant and, agricultural businesses like that.
All right, any other?
Sure, I will add one more thing, and that you guys don't have to pick one zoning district either. You can put it in a couple of them. And that if you wanted to, the idea behind putting it in one zoning classification for like mining that's the only thing that will happen in that zoning classification. And that's where it really involves the town a lot more, because they're going to have to make sure that it complies.
So that might be something we look at, that it might be in 2 of them. Or is it Ag? You have conditional use.
I just wanted to put it out there as an option, and the reason why we didn't propose it for to start off with is because the more zoning districts you put it in, the less authority that's going to fall back to the town.
Sure. Okay.
They'll be kind of notified after the fact, and when they're notified of the permits and notified of the nutrient management plan, they're not going to be in on that front end. So.
Okay.
So, in the bigger scheme of things, how far away are we from being able to set a public hearing date? The conditional use permit, because we have to have one, right, Jason?
Correct, and then it will require a public hearing not October. After that, anyway, that could be as soon as your second meeting in June.
Mr. Chair, thank you for bringing that up, Supervisor Olson. I'd like to just take a step back and ask you, are you satisfied with the CAFO report? And the reason I ask is potentially because of only the initial enabling resolution, but the extension also required that the CAFO report be brought forward to the county board. And if so, if you're satisfied with the report, we could potentially set the public hearing for the CUP and then forward both the CUP as well as the report as early as July or an August meeting to the full county board. And just, if you're looking for a process. However, we still have one outstanding item, which is the city bond or the financial assurance bonds. That's one item in the CUP that has yet to be determined.
All right, so, but we can send the report on to the full board next month? At least.
It might be a good companion document to the actual commission use permit as well, the guidelines.
That, I mean, this could, I mean, if we're okay with it, and I'm fine with it, I mean, this could go out right now, right? I mean.
It is out online right now. Yes, sir.
How does the resolution presented?
Well, the resolution is a month-by-month basis, and the original enabling resolution had the county administrator presenting, who has been changed. And so, again, in order to at least end the moratorium or move on to other things, the requirement is to present the full CAFO report to the full county board.
Okay, then we should send this one out.
Unless you wanted to,
I think it worked out.
If you run parallel with the CUP and present it together is another option.
This is what made the CUP work.
But now you're saying, I want to get this straight. If we send this, we haven't done the CUP, and we haven't, I'm troubled with this V in that I brought this to the attention of the administrator. We're really having trouble, we didn't have trouble with Kristen Bruder today getting online. We can't get public comments. We're having trouble with public involvement. I think we've got to involve the public more before we throw all this and say, end the moratorium.
Well, I think that's why I want to get this out.
But he's saying if we send this to the full board, it'll end the moratorium.
No.
Which is silly.
No. It's just what I require.
No, that's okay. That's all what you said, you know.
No. Oh, no, it does not end it.
No, that was one requirement to the moratorium.
I understand it.
Okay.
But it seemed like Bob was presenting it that if we send this, it will end it. And that, I took it correctly.
So, I mean, shouldn't we send this to the board in June?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I mean, I don't think, we don't want this to go, we want this out there before anything, because if this just goes hand in hand, we're handing everybody else on the county board the same thing on the same night. I mean, I think this should be out there. I mean, if it's already online, it's out there. I think, there's nothing in there, I guess, draft written across it. I mean, so it's out there, but I think in June we should tell the county board the committee has approved this draft, and here's where you can go look at it, or so that everybody knows that it's out there, and I'll say what have been approved by the committee as just to study.
I think then we might get more input on the CUP then. If we get this out sooner, we'll get more people to read it. Get our first draft of the CUP out too then, that we're kind of going with. That'll get us hopefully more public participation and more people seeing this. And if there's not, it won't end the moratorium until we actually end it ourselves. Yeah. Or this, if you redo the CUP, do that again. We'll go through that again. Get out, get people to talk about it and everything else.
That's good.
Okay.
So that was, I think kind of where my question was headed, I mean, is how far are we away from putting out a draft CUP?
I don't think we can answer that question.
Well, I mean, I think
because we next month, in 2 weeks, we have to review the trail issue. And there'll be other things, what do we need an answer on that for?
well, I mean, I guess my question is, that was kind of what's your time frame to see this, to take whatever comes out of this committee to the county board? I mean, because.
You asked me the question.
Yeah, no. And see, when I walked in here today, my timeline was July. I think there's only 2 questions on the CUP we haven't answered. Is my question of agriculture A2 district and your question of bonding.
But I'll go back to what I said before. We have all of these projections on the CUP. And the public has to have input, and we're having trouble getting that input. So I think we have to go down because of this pandemic and let the public, they can't even be in the room, use the phone room. And
we haven't filled it in here too many times. But, up until, March, April, whenever it was, 2 or 3 months ago, I think we had lots of input. Everybody had their chance. I mean, I think to say that the public hasn't had a chance to have input, and what are the options that we wait until October, and then, it has to be January because.
Okay, that's what it is, Brad.
Well, let's see if we can put it.
So, I get to have this argument done. So, Doug, so if we let this go until October, if I drag my feet and let this go October, then we're just going to forget about it and say, it's over with because the county committee didn't get their work done in time.
I'm not saying that at all. That's not even fair. Because the moratorium goes for 6 months. So you ask, well, when do we have to get this done? October. It can be done sooner. But I'm just saying you want to project them out on a timetable, and I'm saying we can't fathom that right now.
Right, but all I'm saying is we have the question of the section of the districts, and we have your question of bonding. I think this
would have public participation.
But we can't have it until we get done so that we can set this for a public hearing. Until we get a draft of this, we can never get public participation.
Mr. Chair, can I provide a comment? So the extension moratorium resolution was passed by the county board, resolution 3 of 20, in February, and so the 6 months is expanded on. And I'd just like to provide a little bit of insight on it.
We got to see because that's not what's coming out of Pittsburgh. Everybody's saying October. So where is the look?
Didn't it extend it from the expiration of the original 6 months? So it wouldn't be 6 months from the date the new resolution passed. It would be 6 months from the date the original resolution would have expired. Right?
But it would be extended as 6 months extension of the original 6 months.
But you also have to remember that you can't wait till October.
No, I'm not saying that. I just say we don't have a date.
So we have public hearing and then we also have to have time for publication.
I got that. I can't answer a subjective question. I just can't.
And when it comes to the financial assurance, that something to think about is our size operation, so if I got 1,000 big units, or if I got 7,000 big units, are you gonna have the same financial assurance level on both of them? You know, and that is something to consider, and that when you're taking a look at.
Yeah, when it's shot. But I think we can put each little two questions on our next if they're approved. Yeah, that's one of the.
You're saying put them on the end, and if there's time, we discuss, and if there's not time, they just go to the next meeting. Because there again, we don't know, are we gonna be here for an hour, or are we gonna be here for 3 hours, or 4 hours, you know, on the public comment side of things. So yeah, I think we have to make sure we have, you know, something there that we can have if it's a short public hearing, so to speak.
Okay, and then we'll have those.
Mr. Chairman, I forgot one item.
Yes.
I looked and see that he's gone, but according to Mr. Nelson, the towns want to be involved. So how do they get involved if we aren't putting them on the agenda and letting them be involved if they want to be?
Well, if they want to be involved in the permit process, that's why we were saying that we have approval of things in that process.
Yeah, I'm just asking for Mr. Nelson.
That's what they asked for. That's what I asked for, what they want.
Right.
They want to be in the process for the approval.
Okay. But we need to do that.
Yep. Yes. And that's why they're, yeah.
And that one one zoning district, I wonder what zoning classification that would be, is that once it's zoned that way, it's gonna start at the town, right up front.
Okay. So, C, I don't know if we need discussion because we're not going to end it yet. Discussion, consideration, and resolution to end the moratorium. That won't come till the CUP is done that, really.
Right, and my only goal was to send 2 options to the county board. I mean, simple as that. You know, send the CUP and send the other option that says leave it exactly the way it is. Leave it in the hands of the state. So yeah, I mean that can end for today as far as I'm concerned, because until October, whatever that date is, you know.
Then it'll be ready to go. All right. Number 9, I think we're going to take a short break though. We've been sitting there. That was a good idea. Yeah. Everybody. And number 9 seems short and sweet anyway, isn't it?